Ah, what a glorious day, Buddy the dog. Isn't it a glorious day, Mr. Sun?
It's always a nice day with 2 scoops of raisins.
Yes, it is. Buddy the dog, are you as excited as I am? I don't know. You can't contain your excitement. Today is a good day because here in about maybe 10 minutes or so, there should be something arriving here that is a long time in the making. It took me about a month or more to get this deal done, and friends, I think it's awesome. So we're gonna talk about it right after this. Welcome back. If you haven't seen my videos before, I'm Rusty Oliver Man, and I like tractors, that's no secret, right? And for whatever reason, in past years, these little foreign diesels are just, I don't know, I think they're cute, and I like them. The other day, we got that 1250A. Well, today, we're going to be taking delivery of something that is even more rare than that. So rare, in fact, that this is the only one known to exist, and I own it. And it is a Oliver 600 high crop. It is coming from Mississippi, and like I said, I talked to the trucker, and it's supposed to be here in just a little bit, and I can't wait. I think the plan is we're going to unload at the road because he's got other stuff on his trailer, you know. I think he said there was a, okay, cow, I'm talking right now, don't interrupt me. Well, yeah, okay, well, now they're going to start that. But at any rate, what I'm talking about is, I think he said he had a Jeep on there behind. The tractor is on the front of the trailer. I saw pictures of it chained down. So whenever he gets here, he'll have to unload whatever's on the back of the trailer. I should be able to get on and drive the tractor off, because this is one of the rare occasions where I bought something that's supposed to run. However, being on a trailer for 8 hours, that may make it not run. I don't know. We'll just have to see. It seems like, you know how it is. Things don't like to run after they've been on the trailer, but I don't know. It's very hard to contain my excitement. It's like being a kid on Christmas morning, and I can't wait to see it in person. So I'll bring you back whenever it gets here. All right, I left the GoPro in the golf cart, but there's the rig we've got. The GPS took him to a different place, so I had to go get him, and then I forgot the camera. It's in the golf cart, but he's gonna load the Jeep, and then we're going to, I'm gonna back the tractor off, and should be all good. Buddy the dog. Well, I thought I left the GoPro in the golf cart, but it turns out when I made my turn in the golf cart that the GoPro got ejected, and I found the GoPro laying in the driveway because I almost ran it over with the tractor. But all is good. You appear to be recording fine. So I'm gonna walk up here and get my pickup. It's got a few of the pieces in it that were, you know, loose pieces that could have blown off, that they took off. So, including the seat. I had to ride it up here without a seat, but we will get all that assembled up here together, and then we'll talk about this thing. Buddy the dog, you just laying there all day licking yourself? Some people got it made, you know. Sure. Oh, friends, isn't it beautiful? I mean, what a cool little horse. I mean, Buddy the dog, he can't contain himself. Look at him. Yeah, sure. But a 600 high crop, the only one known to exist as a high crop. And here it is. So if you know nothing about these, I have that little 500. I should probably go get it and park it up here so we could compare. I might do that in a minute. But Oliver was looking for a utility tractor with more features, I guess you'd say, than the Super 55. such as one thing people wanted was differential lock and, you know, just different things. And finally, it was cheaper for them to import a tractor than to try to tool up and design one that had all the stuff that guys were asking for. So enter David Brown. They were looking desperately for a way to get their products into the United States, and this was a good arrangement. So they started making the 500 and the 600. And there's by far more 500s out there than there are 600s. I want to say that there was supposed to be like 500, an order for 500 of the 600, and that order got canceled halfway through or whatever, so not even that many got made. So a 600 on its own is kind of a rare bird, but a 600 high crop, this is it. And I don't even know why or how or what, but that's what I hope to find out here in the future, maybe. Oliver, they made this deal with David Brown, and they're going to have the 500, which is the same as the David Brown 880, I think, is the model number of the David Brown. Don't quote me on all this, it's been a while. So David Brown 880, same as the 500, and then the David Brown 990 is the same as the 600, I believe. But they, of course, Oliverized the grill a little bit. This is supposed to have an Oliver emblem in it, and then there was a lattice piece that goes over this, which is missing, which we'll have to either make or see if... There is a guy who knew all about these named Nelson LeCount, and he just passed away last year, I believe it was. It might have been 2 years ago by now, but he had a registry of all these, and that has now been taken over by David McGuire. He lives in Kentucky. And so it was him, it was Nelson and David, and then there was this third guy, I think his name was Jim. They were the ones who started to kind of revive the interest in these David Brown built Olivers. And so then the only one left is David. The other two have passed on. But Nelson had he did a lot of research and stuff. He even went over to England and met with people over there, you know, because there's David Brown collectors in England, and sorted out a lot of this. He came down here and visited me one time, and we talked for a long time. I don't know if that was, well, it would have had to been before, it would have had to been after I started doing YouTube, because that's how he saw the, well, is that how he saw the tractor? No, I guess it's because I called him about the list, and then whatever. But at any rate, what I'm saying is, they're going to have an auction of his stuff this fall, but they gave the list to David to keep that going, and I thought that his parts business was being sold to someone else, so I got to find out who that is, because he had the stuff made, like I could get this, and I'm hoping that that is also made. If not, I'll have to make it myself, but that's a later on worry. I guess we'll get back to our story here. So 500 and 600. The 500 you could have as gas or diesel. And then there's a serial number break. And then after that serial number break, it was diesel only. And it also changed from, what was it, from 5-lug front wheels to 6-lug front wheels or something like that. So that's an easy way to ID which one you have, if I remember that correctly. But then the 600, they just did not make that many, because what happened was, the whole reason for David Brown agreeing to do this was they wanted to get their tractors in the United States so people could, you know, see that they were quality built or whatever. Well, then they got the opportunity to buy out some, or take over, not buy out, that's not the right word. I want to say it was some Ford dealers that kind of got the rug pulled out from under them, and they were looking for something to sell, and David Brown said, hey, we got tractors. So then they started selling tractors through those dealers. Why, you're not going to sell a tractor to another company to have them put their name on it when you could sell it under your own name. So then the deal was done, and it was halfway through that order of 600s or whatever, to my understanding. That is when Oliver then didn't have any utility tractor to market that had all the features and stuff, so they turned to Fiat, And that relationship was great. It lasted up into the White years, and White actually terminated it, which was kind of silly because at the time, those little Fiats had a pretty good chunk of the market share as one of the best utility tractors out there. So, whatever. But these, in their time, were ruggedly built little tractors. That's one thing about it. David Brown built everything. They were primarily, as I understand it, like a gearbox or a transmission manufacturer. And, you know, so they built the whole thing. This whole design is theirs, and they were proud of it. The 500, and I don't know if this one is the same way, I think the 500 has David Brown cast into the block. Maybe that's just on that one or just certain models, but at any rate, this being a 600 is of the later variety because the 500 came out first, and there were some changes made on it versus earlier things. One of them being on the earlier tractors, your batteries were back here in these two boxes, and then there was a crossover cable because back then you used 2 6s to make a 12. And in later revisions, they moved the battery up here in front of the grill, which is what this one is. And then this was just like, had these blank off plates, which I have, thank goodness. They took them off for shipping. But these blank off plates go in there, and then they cover that. And you got yourself a couple toolboxes there. The 500 has a toolbox under the center of the seat. But since they have 2 toolboxes here, that's not the case on this. It's just a pass through all the way from one side to the other. And then of course your seat mounting bracket is slightly different. I know my videos are very ADD because I jump around from subject to subject, but the seat is not very good. However, in my travels, I have deduced, I'm pretty sure that's the same seat as a Massey Ferguson. They look identical. I mean, there is no difference to my knowledge. So what I'm saying is that over there in England or wherever, they bought the seats from a supplier and they supplied seats to, you know, both places. That's what I'm guessing. To be sure, my uncle on his little Ferguson that was my great-grandpa's, he actually has a seat that is this style, which is not the correct style for that tractor, but it's the correct style for, it probably came off that 65 diesel, to be honest with you. But at any rate, I could take this over there and compare before I order one to make sure that it really is what I need, but I'm sure that it is. So we can get that, because that seat ain't very good. So that's one moral of the story. It runs good. I can't complain about that. Of course, I've only run it for like 2 minutes. But it's obviously, it's more rough than the 500 was when it came here, but this tractor was obviously way more used than the 500. The 500 is actually a very, I would say, low-hour tractor. And the only reason it's as rough looking as it is because that obviously the second owner let it sit outside a long time and it aged. But I would say that this tractor probably spent its last years running an auger, would be my guess. And you say, why do you say that? Well, for one, the 3-point is missing and it's got the drawbar only on it. But then also, I would say that because it appears someone has put on a set of Murphy switches. They're not hooked up because I could run it without it. And basically what they do is, if you've never seen that, to start it, you have to manually bypass it to get it to start, or you're supposed to. This one's obviously either been hot wired or something's going on. But if your tractor, if it senses that you got no oil pressure or something bad is happening, it'll shut the fuel off. And that's it. Then it won't run. And then you don't have to fear about melting it down or whatever. We're probably going to take that off of there. I mean, that's not original and it doesn't really do much for me. I don't know. Maybe I should get it working and run it on an auger. I don't know. But anyway, that's not quite the way that it was. What else have I noticed? It still has the combination charging and oil pressure gauge. The water temperature gauge is busted, and the tachometer is missing the needle. So we'll have to do some searching for better gauges. The sediment bowl is leaking, which is funny because the 500 started leaking here a while back, and then I messed with it and it still was leaking, and then one day it just decided to quit leaking, and it's been fine ever since. So figure that one out. It's missing one of the little lights on there, but I'm pretty sure I can get those still. I know I can get the lenses. They're not very, I don't know if anybody else has one of these tractors and can relate, but I bought all that stuff new for the 500 and it didn't even last a year. The rubber is made out of something that's not very good quality and it just disintegrated. So I think I managed to find all the lenses back that fell out, but you know, whatever. She's a little low on oil, so probably a servicing would be a good thing for its future here. What to say about it? I mean, this is kind of, I don't know, because nobody's ever seen one before. This is it. I would be curious to know if there's another one out there, so that's my hope for this video, that maybe someone will see it and be like, oh, we've got 15 of those or whatever. That's not rare. But as far as I know, this is the only one that is a high crop that is known to exist. And overall, I have to say it's not in bad shape. I mean, it's like I said, it's very obviously it has been used, but that's what a tractor is made for. I'm very pleasantly surprised or pleased with the tires. I think the tires are very good. They got a lot of tread on them. There's some dry cracking, but tires do that, you know. It's probably sat more than it's moved, because like I said, I bet you that its last task in life was to sit in one place and run something. That would be my guess. A couple shout outs, I guess. The guy that I bought it from, he was selling it for somebody else, and his name was Carl. He was a super nice guy. He made all this happen. He coordinated it, and so I'm thankful to him. And then also the truck driver, Jose, he just came and we unloaded it, and he was a super nice guy. He subscribed to the channel right away, so he said, I'm going to watch that and see what you do with it, you know, over time. So hopefully we'll get to this in a reasonable time. I definitely will do a little bit here and there to make it where we can hop on it and do something with it. But I don't know when we'll get around to the cosmetic part of it, but I'm super pumped, you know. How this went down, I saw it on eBay, believe it or not. It was Fair Week, so it was about a month ago. And I was scrolling through there one night and I thought, hey, that's unusual. And it wasn't that much money. So I bid on it and I won. Then I didn't meet the reserve. So the guy sent me a message. He said, hey, call me. So I called him and he said, I'm selling this for somebody and he wants to try to get as much out of it as he can, which that's understandable. And I said, well, that's good. I said, but I'm in the business of trying to get it as cheap as I can. So I said, we'll just have to see. He said, yeah, he said, you know, he thinks it's worth more money because it's, you know, he probably didn't know it was one of one, and I wasn't going to say anything about that till I owned it. But he said, you know, I think it's worth more money, and, or the guy does, you know, and he said, I don't know what to do. He said, and I said, well, I said, the thing about the foreign built Oliver tractors, for whatever reason, people snub them, and I don't think that's right, because they're really well built little tractors. But there's a lot of collectors who don't consider these real Olivers and they don't want them or whatever. And so basically what I told the guy is, I'm afraid your market is pretty limited. You know, I'm the guy who wants this, you know. There's not a lot of people clamoring for it. And he said, yeah, I can see that, you know. And so he said, well, I'll talk to the guy and I'll see if he'll, because I told him, I said I would offer X amount of dollars for it. And he said, well, I'll see, you know, and talk to him and I'll let you know. Well, it was like the next day it was back on, it was relisted for sale again. And I thought, oh boy, that guy must have thought that my offer wasn't anywhere close to, you know, what he wanted, and I thought, whatever. So it was on there again. So I bid on it again. I was the high bidder again. The second time it brought less money than the first time. So I thought, now perhaps the owner is ready to, you know, do some dealing. So I called him back, we talked about it, and of course it's, when you're talking to a guy and then he's talking to a guy, it takes some time to get the messages relayed back and forth. But they called back and he said, yeah, he said he'd take your offer. And so we talked about that, and I asked him about, you know, if he could have it shipped here or whatever. And he said, well, he said, I've done that before. He said, I know what it's going to cost about. And I said, well, I'm on board with that if we can make that happen. So coordinating that took, like I said, it's been about a month. And he basically said, he said, well, if it's going to be more than whatever I told you, he said, then I'll just bring it myself. Well, he put it on, I think it's called Shipley. And it's another one of those deals, kind of like U-Ship, where you put it on there and then they put it out for bids and the lowest shipper wins or whatever. So that's where we got to meet Jose. He was the guy who took the bid, and super great guy, good communication. He called right away last night, or I called him and we talked, and I said, just let me know when you're going to be here so I can make sure I'm around or whatever we got to do. And that was just super easy. I mean, it really was great. And he was a good guy. Like I said, he had got that Jeep. If you saw that clip, that's how those guys make their money. They go around with a 40-foot trailer and they pick up a load like this, and then in another town they pick up another load and whatever, and then along the way make stops, and that helps everybody out. They make money, and then you, as the person having something shipped, you don't have to pay thousands of dollars to have something shipped, because it might be another stop along the way of stuff that he's doing. So like that Jeep, I think he said, is going to Cincinnati. And I told him, I said, well, you're in luck, because basically you go out of my driveway and you head north and you'll hit Highway 50 and you just take that all the way to Cincinnati. So he's on his way with that. So that was cool. And like he said, you know, he gets to meet all kinds of people. And when I told him I had YouTube, he said, well, I'm going to subscribe to it right now, because he said, I want to see what you do with it. And he said, that's cool. So that was good. That's another thing about tractor collecting hobby, is you get to meet all kinds of people. And I would say that 99.9% of the people you meet are good people. I mean, the guy I bought this from, I didn't know him from anybody, and he was a super nice guy. And the guy shipping here, he was a super nice guy. You hear stories about people having bad experiences with this or that, but I would have to say that 99% is positive of everybody that you deal with when you're doing stuff like this. And so that's one of the joys of it too, the hobby, I guess, you know, more than the iron, is meeting these different people. And so that's pretty cool. So yeah, 600. I have to look. I don't know if I have a parts book for this. I have a lot of parts books, but I don't remember if I have one for a 600 or not. But I would be curious to see if any of this high crop stuff is actually listed as a thing, because I don't know that it really is. But I believe that it's factory stuff. I mean, that's not a conversion, I don't think, that somebody put on there. You know, like you'd see those C. Alice Chalmers, and they have like the Thompson high crop conversion. I don't believe that's what this is. I believe that this really is a legitimate David Brown built deal. It appears to me that it does not have power steering. Like when I drove it, it very obviously is manual steering. And what I'm wondering is why, you know, is it because something is missing, or is it because they never made it that way? I mean, it's a high crop, so it's probably totally different stuff. And then the other thing that was said in the listing is, he said, well, I couldn't get this remote valve to work. Well, that's not that's not factory. I've never seen one of these little tractors that had that. Somebody plumbed this all in and made it work. And I don't know that I'm set on keeping that, you know. What they've done essentially is to get their pressure, I guess they teed into one side of the hydraulic unit there, and they must be returning it to the transmission here. But then, what do we got as far as remotes? Okay, they got a loop line in there, so that tells me that it's probably open center, and if they don't have the loop line in, bad things would happen. So we're gonna have to sort that out. And I am of the mind that I'm gonna try to find 3-point hitch arms and stuff for it. Like I said, a 990 David Brown should be the same type of stuff, but I don't know, since it's a high crop, if they wouldn't have been longer, you know. But anything is better than nothing. And what I'm getting at is here on the 500, in order to use the 3-point, you had to take the drawbar off. And then when you put the drawbar on, the tractor drawbar, I think as they call it, you had to pin it in there somehow, and then these links hooked to it to hold it rigid. So the 600, as far as I can tell, you can have both things on at the same time. You can have the 3-point on and the drawbar. So it'd be just a simple matter of the pins go through those holes, and then your arms go on there, and then there you have 3-point arms. Because it would be, I think this would be a handy tractor to have 3-point on. And what I'm thinking is my little spot sprayer or whatever, or even whatever kind of sprayer, you know, if it would handle like that sprayer, boy, you could go out there when the crops were tall and do what it was meant for, high cropping, you know. I don't know, but it's pretty cool. I did notice in the toolbox, it still has this with it. It's pretty rusty, but that is the PTO cover. Those are not always still around. It's got that good Mississippi mud in the toolbox. We might have to wash through there and see if there's any other valuable treasures that we can't live without. Don't know. Is that the cable clamp? Maybe. What else is in there? Part of a scraper. Big bolt. So yeah, I would say that these are the two lights that go up here to the warning thing. So we probably need to make that all work. Taking the hood off of these is kind of an ordeal in a way. It's all one piece. It's held on with springs, I believe. So, and then you got to just take it off of there. I don't know. The muffler has obviously been replaced, but what I'm getting at is, and it might be just a 500 thing, what I'm thinking. Like I said, I really need to do some research in parts books and see what's what. But I know on the 500, the muffler setup was different. Like it's held in with a set screw like thing or bolt. And then like when Nelson came down here, the guy I was talking about who was the leading expert on these at the time, he said, well, that muffler, I don't know about that. Well, my muffler is original, and I believe that he had never saw an original muffler because he was trying to tell me how to take it off, and I said, that's not how it's made. I said, mine is just like in the parts book, and it's got like a cone on it. It's something. I'll have to show it to you sometime whenever we mess with the 500, but it's way different. Now this one looks like it's got a bolted flange affair, and then just a regular pipe that you clamp to, like your, you know, everything else that's ever made. So that's something. But overall, I mean, I'm tickled to death with this. It seems like it's a lot of money, but it really wasn't that much money, to be quite honest with you. I mean, for example, I almost bought a Super 44 the other day on an auction several weeks ago. And I bid and bid and bid, and it was getting to where I was like, I really don't know if I'm in on this, because the Super 44 you see them. They're still low production, but they're not super duper duper rare. And so I thought, you know, what do I bid? Well, by the time you figured in their tax and the buyer's premium, it was going to be over $5,000. And I was like, I'm out. That's too much. I don't want to spend that much money right now. And I can tell you right now, I bought this one and that 1250A, and I could buy a third tractor non-running that I'm looking at and not have spent as much money as I would have on that Super 44. So that's where we're at. This was a good deal for what it is. I mean, first of all, if you just look at it as a tractor, it's got almost excellent tires on it, I would consider, and that is worth something right there. It runs good. It's a diesel. It's definitely worth what I paid for it. And then you add in the super cool factor of it's the only one known like this. Yeah, this was a no-brainer for me. I mean, to make this happen. The roughest thing on it, I think, is this headlight being broke. And it was like that in the picture. You could see. I wonder if it just looks like it just rusted out. I don't know if that's something that I could potentially fix, or if they just make new ones and it would be cheaper to just go ahead and make new one. I don't know. We got to have this on though, because it looks funny without both of them. So we're going to be entering now the parts gathering phase, where we probably don't do a lot with it. And I will have it in the background and slowly gather parts as I can. The one thing that needs to happen is, well, we need to get this din out. And then I want to try to get a badge, and I'd like to see if Mrs. Nelson still has parts and if she will still sell them, and if they do in fact have this lattice work grill, because I think that it needs that. It doesn't look quite Oliver-esque without it. So we'll get that done. And I don't know, I want to do some more looking and stuff and see if I can find any information on, I don't know that I've ever even seen a David Brown that was set up this way. Like, is David Brown collectors, are you out there? Did they make a high crop just like this? I don't know. I'd like to know. I'd be curious to know. But man, it's so cool. It's just one of those things that by chance I happened to see it, and by chance I was able to make this work. And that's just so cool. I mean, I can't get over it. I mean, I did not set out this summer. I guess what I'm saying is, like, people see the tractors. I don't actively really go out and seek the tractors. They kind of find me. Like, I just randomly one day it'll pop open with one, and I'll be like, that, I gotta have that. I mean, that's a good deal. So that's how this came here. And like I said, we'll make it a little bit more better. I will probably go ahead and buy the Euro style muffler, like it's what's on the like I got on those Fiats, because that looks a little more correct than this one. But yeah, I'm just gonna gather some parts and we will figure out where we're gonna go from here. But basically, if you haven't seen any of my stuff before, my first order of business is to get it lined out mechanically, and then we'll try to get cosmetic, you know. But if we have something apart along the way, we're probably going to paint it on our way back together. Looks like they put a new water pump on it at some point, so you know, the tractor was being used and it was being maintained. It just, we got to continue that now. Definitely needs an oil change, because like I said, it needs oil added, so it's time to change oil. But I don't know what else to say. It's just a cool horse. I assume these are 38-inch rear tires. I never even looked, but they have that. Or are they 36s? Oh, they're 36s. That's even more odd. 36-inch tires, just like that 2020 John Deere. It's on 36s. That's an odd thing, you know. Wonder why tire companies even said, let's do that. Why didn't they just be like, it's 38s or nothing, you know? 13.9 36s. And a lot of tread left. Good front tires and good tread. Alternator's been cobbled a little. It's a different thing than what it's supposed to have, because it would have had a generator. So in turn, the wiring is also not that pleasant. So for originality's sake, on something this unique, I might have to go ahead and get a generator and put her back the way she's supposed to be. I don't know. For usable sake, this is the way to go. And if you go the other way, you're going to be to positive ground, because that's what the 500 is. And that kind of complicates things too, because my jump box does not like positive ground. And like this being dead, all I had to do is just hook it up and go. I guess what I'm depriving you of, I'm about ready to end this video. You've never heard it run. Let's get it running, started, because the battery's dead. I got the jump box here. And let's just put it around and let you see it going for a drive. That would be fair to you, right? We got to remember that our seat is not fastened down, so we don't want to lean back too far. Let's try to put these blank off plates back in there so we don't lose them. Got to get one knob. That one's missing the knob. It appears to me also, if it's not obvious on camera, it appears to me like somebody has given it a repaint job at some point in its life, at least part of it. Maybe not all of it, but it kind of looks blue. And I would say that the green has faded to blue, as most of the cheap store paint does. But let me get the jump box and we'll fire it up, and then we'll take it for a drive. Still playing with yourself? That's okay. Nobody will play with me either. Let's jump this thing. And here it runs. It runs like a sweetheart. Faithful old jump box. It's like lugging a Briggs & Stratton engine around, but it does do the job. Once again, I'm battery poor. This battery's no good. Oh, I did get it. It's up to 11.6 volts, but that's still not enough to start it. Make sure it's in neutral so we don't run over ourselves. They are just such sweethearts, those little David Brown diesels. We should probably make sure that there's, yeah, she's dry. She's dry, friend. She's dry. We should make sure it's got water in it before we... You ever see a fat man try to mount one of these? It's not graceful. To say though, it's almost easier to get on the high crop one than it is to get on the not high crop one. Oh, I did a dumb thing though. I forgot to move the jump box. All right, if this is to be believed, it has over 7,000 hours on it. Let's go backwards first. Look at how wore the steering wheel is. Do we think that that is from constant hands on it, that it's wore down that much? That's pretty neat. Never seen one that far. Giddy up. Whoa. That wasn't smart. Okay, we need to rethink that. Whoa, horsey, whoa. Whoa, horsey, whoa! about ejected me. Okay, horsey. Get it out. Get it out. There we go. I really need to pin this seat on because it wants to let me loose. Pretty cool. The throttle works a lot smoother on this one than it does on that 500, so we need to work on the 500 and get that where we can actually move it easy, because it's pretty stiff. Whoa, horse. Whoa! We don't really have a left brake to speak of. It's not really working very good. It's like the pedal is tight. This one we kind of got brake. Also, I notice a difference is the 500 has that parking brake thing you pull up here. So I wonder if it doesn't have that because it's... Well, what else is new? GoPro's too hot. But as I was saying, I wonder if the high crop never had the parking brake affair because of high crop things. Maybe if you had a high crop, there's some reason you couldn't use that. I don't know. We're gonna have to address that diesel fuel leak though, because it's dripping pretty steady. Yeah, I'm pumped. This is pretty cool. Sleep. Yeah, so what else to say, but we'll see it in future videos. We'll gather parts and make it more better. We need to at least put a pin through the seat so we don't go flying, because that ain't good for nobody. But what a little sweetheart. I mean, and it's the only one known so far. Prove me wrong though. I like to be wrong. If you've got a 600 high crop, or you know where there is one at, go find it and get pictures of it and email me so that I can see that there's more out there. And if possible, get the serial number so we can add it on to Nelson's list. You know, it still exists. It's in the hands of David, and he's keeping it going. So that'd be neat to know if there's more of these out there. There's some 500 high crops, but no other 600 high crops known to exist. So on that note, we're going to leave this video here. As always, thank you for watching. As a matter of fact, watch this video about 8 times so I can help pay for this. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. After watching what you just saw, do you feel like your IQ has dropped lower than your credit score? Well, there's no reason that both of us should be miserable, so go ahead and hit that thumbs up and leave a comment. That stuff costs you nothing, and it really helps me out. Your banker may not approve, but I know mine will. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.